Ever wonder how you can prevent and reverse signs of aging like wrinkles without getting Botox? You'll want to listen to today's episode. Welcome back to Living a Nutritious Life. I'm your host, Keri Glassman, and today we have the amazing Dr. Debbie Kang, a master of acupuncture and Chinese medicine. Debbie is a friend of mine and my personal acupuncturist. I first went to see Debbie for facial acupuncture, actually, many years ago. Debbie is a board certified doctor of Chinese medicine and a licensed acupuncturist in Texas and New York State. Her whole incredible bio is in the show notes, so go check that out. In today's episode, we talk about the ancient art of acupuncture and its incredible benefits for modern health concerns. Debbie shares how treating disease is not just about addressing symptoms, but tapping into the body's profound ability to heal itself. We also take a close look at some fascinating Eastern modalities such as gua sha and cupping, and we discuss their unique benefits for both the mind and the body. And Debbie also shares her own personal journey in the world of acupuncture, from her battle with thyroid cancer to studying in Taiwan, and how finding the right acupuncturist is akin to choosing the perfect therapist for your emotional health. It's a good one, friends. And as always, if you like it, please rate, review, and share. Hi, Debbie. I'm so excited to have you on today. I cannot wait to chat with you.
Oh, hi, Keri. Thanks for having me. Hi, guys. I'm excited to be here. It's been
I am
forever.
so beyond excited. I can't believe, though, we've been trying to catch up for so long. I can't believe it took us recording the podcast to get to catch up. So really, everyone, this is just, selfish here. I just want to chat with Debbie today. So we're going to record it. No, but I can't wait to, in all seriousness, we haven't been able to catch up. I'm so excited to chat with you today about a million things that I know our listeners are going to love and learn so much from. But before we even do that, just how are you? How's Austin?
Oh, yeah, I'm doing great. I've been here for what now? 4 years, almost 4 years, and it's been lovely. I moved my practice down here to Central Austin, so I'm right downtown. Settled in, found a home, and it's been really good. I mean, I just really love it. The weather is definitely more pleasant this time of year
Yeah,
compared to
for
what you guys
sure.
are dealing with right now. But otherwise, it's been wonderful. I feel so blessed. Yeah.
So you're lucky you get to be in Austin. I'm not lucky that you're not in New York City anymore. I was so everyone listening, I met Debbie through our friend Robin Chauvin. And remember way back when, and she introduced me to you. So everyone, we were introduced because I wanted to start doing acufacials. I really wanted to dive in and not do any Botox and really do everything. I already have had a good skincare practice and obviously eat healthy and all that, but I wanted to do something more to just keep my skin looking a little better, staying a little younger without necessarily going to Botox. Not that there's nothing wrong with that. I've done that before too, but I just wanted to do that and dive in. And so I started seeing Debbie for acufacials, and I mean, we're going to talk about that later. Actually, yeah, let's save that. We're going to save that because we're going to talk specifically about that. But that's how we originally met. But then we just became friends, and I learned so much from Debbie. You all have to follow her on Instagram. Just you're so smart, and you're so filled with like so much knowledge. And what I love about the information you give is you give so many, which is what I try to do in this podcast, actionable steps people can take to improve their health. So let's just start with, first of all, how did you get into acupuncture?
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for all the kind words. So it's kind of a crazy story how I got into this medicine. Growing up, I was never interested in anything Asian, which kind of sounds weird given that I'm Taiwanese. My parents raised me in Virginia, which at the time wasn't really big in terms of an Asian community. So I had kind of a bit of an identity crisis. So I think anything Asian for me growing up was kind of like, well, that's an exclusion. I don't fit in. So I kind of almost denied some of the way that I was. So this is kind of a coming of age story, if you will. And
Oh, I
then
love
fast
that.
years later, I was in New York City. I used to work in fashion for many years. And one of my coworkers was like, you know what? You have been working a lot. You're really stressed. I would highly recommend that you actually try acupuncture. It's in your culture, which I thought was kind of a interesting idea because I've never actually thought about that before as an option to dealing with stress. At the time
Mhm.
I was 20s and being in New York, going off the Sex and the City vibe and the fashion industry, it was just so much
Yeah,
fun. So, of course, I lended to enjoying that lifestyle as well, if you will.
right.
And so,
Burning the candle at both ends.
exactly, yes. Working hard, playing harder. So,
Mhm.
I found a random person in Chinatown that I went to because I didn't even know where to begin, and I had one acupuncture session, and it changed my life. It was like I was
Wow.
a completely different person by the time when I first got on the treatment table to when I walked off the treatment table. It was insane, and so I felt like an epiphany went off, and I was like, "How is it that this makes me feel better? It just looks like you're just putting random needles in someone's body, and it changes you
Right.
after a couple minutes." So, at that point, I was already starting to think about leaving the fashion industry and kind of pursuing something else that gave me a little bit more quote unquote meaning, if you will. And so this kind of fell into my lap at the perfect time. And so I decided that, hey, I'm going to leave the industry and actually pursue this type of medicine to learn about it because I had so many questions, right?
Right.
I didn't know how it worked. I didn't know where it came from. I mean, I knew the origins in terms of the culture, but like, how did it even come about? So there's so many things that I wanted to know personally. I was just so curious about that. I was like, wow, if this one session can impact me so positively, how many other people can it impact in such a greater realm and a greater volume? And so for me, this was like, maybe this is kind of like my quote unquote life calling, if you will. This really brought
Yeah.
a lot of peace and nourishment to me, knowing that I can actually learn this medicine and help other people experience the same sensations and feelings that I felt even after one session. So that's kind of how
Incredible.
I got into it.
So
Yeah.
so then what type of training did you go for?
So training in the U.S. is a little bit different than training in Asia and other parts of the world. It really depends on, um, I guess, the rules and regulations, if you will. It's
Mhm.
actually in the U.S. It's governed by an overall organization, but it's actually more or less state regulated, kind of how the
Okay.
U.S. works in terms of like
Yeah.
local government and federal government. And so for me, I chose Texas. My
Okay.
younger sister is actually an acupuncturist as well, even though growing up we were not that close, but we're much closer now. And she was in Austin and she actually went through an acupuncture program that was highly recommended. So I was like, well, knowing me, I have a little bit of ADHD. And if I stayed in New York City and tried to study acupuncture, I would never get anything done. So I decided to pick up and then move to Austin, Texas years ago, actually, to pursue it's considered a master's degree in Chinese medicine. And so
Okay.
that's what I did. And that program lasts anywhere between 3.5 to 4.5 years, depending
Oh,
on
wow. Oh, I didn't
programs.
realize it was that long. Okay.
It's pretty intense and it's year round. So we do, instead of semesters, we do trimesters. So it's pretty
Okay.
intense. And I know there's like a statistic out there saying that if 5 people start acupuncture school, literally only one person ends up practicing years later, just because you have to take the boards. And there's in
Wow.
Texas and California are the strictest states when in terms of regulating. So
Okay.
it's really interesting because I think many people don't realize like we put a needle in you, but with that needle comes years of blood, sweat, and
Right.
tears and experience and knowledge and studying and all that.
Oh,
So
I can believe it for sure. It makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah, I mean, you wanna trust someone that is putting a needle in you, so you wanna make sure that they know what they're doing.
Of
So,
course.
long story short, it's basically a master's program anywhere you go in the US. It's
Mhm.
state regulated. And so after you graduate, depending on the state, some states require boards to be taken. So you take a
Mhm.
board after that, or you take 4 boards in the case of Texas, which is one of the strictest states. California has its own separate licensing for that. And then afterwards, you just start practicing. It's basically building your own business. And it's a
But
very,
then you came back to New York because I
yeah,
obviously I
yeah,
met you in New York. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So
So did you
after
come
that,
right back?
so it was kind of a roundabout way, too long of a story, but I don't know if I ever told you this, but I'm sure I've since shared it on social media. Part of the reason why I left Austin is I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. Kind of came out of left field.
I
I
did
at the
not know that.
time, yeah. So you can kind of see here, they took out half my
Mhm.
thyroid. It was like the left lobe. Anyways, I am in remission, and it just really so grateful that I was able to recover fully, and it really gave me a new way of looking at life and medicine
Mhm.
and health and empathy. And so I looked at it as like a very big silver lining and how I can use it in my practice.
Mhm.
Um, And so then I left, and actually I moved to Taiwan for about a year and a half because
Okay.
my mom lives there, and she wanted to kind of take care of me because of the recovery process from my surgery wasn't as smooth as we was hoping. And so it was just kind of taking a break in life, like kind of reassessing. So I
Yeah.
had that opportunity. I was so grateful that I could actually put my life on pause for a little bit and then go back to Taiwan, my motherland, and be able to reconnect with my mother and reconnect with my culture. And while I was there, I actually
Wow.
started studying under a couple acupuncturists as well, going
So you
in.
had, and so you'd already completed everything in Austin with the
Yes,
program with
yes, I
Nutritious.
had
Wow.
completed. Yes, so I had completed everything in Austin. I was probably about 2 months into opening my practice in Austin when I was diagnosed with my thyroid
Okay.
cancer. And so, that being said, it was kind of like, well, maybe I need to kind of pivot and take care of my health
Yeah.
first, ironically, versus taking care of other
Right.
people, right? Because you can't pour from an empty cup, which is something I constantly remind myself being a health practitioner, as most
Yeah.
health practitioners probably realize and know, because it's so easy to serve others when that is your
Absolutely.
job versus putting
Absolutely.
yourself
And so
first.
nice though that you were able to go and be with your mom and have her take care of you and nurture you. And then for you again, like you went into acupuncture, you were connecting with your culture, but now to connect even further by being in Taiwan. That's really a
Yeah.
beautiful silver lining of it all, I guess, right?
Yeah, I felt really just completely grateful. I mean, I can't even put it into words, like how, opportunistic it was, but also in just a way that the universe really showed me, okay, well, this is
Mhm.
a dive into getting to reconnect with on a personal level and a professional level before we get
Mhm.
you to the next phase. So I kind of had that in mind. I knew that this was getting me ready for going back to the US. I just didn't know if I was going to go back to Austin or New York at the time. And then while I was in Taiwan, I connected with someone that I ended up from a past that ended up bringing me back to New York for a little
Yeah.
bit. And so that's how I
Okay.
met Robin, was through him. That's how I met you, was through Robin. And so when I was back in New York, that's when I actually worked under another acupuncturist while I was kind of setting up shop, getting ready to do my own practice. Because
Mhm.
here's the thing with acupuncture, and I think if you've had acupuncture done, for those of you guys listening, you probably understand that seeing an acupuncturist is almost like picking a therapist,
Mhm.
or nutritionist, like someone that you actually vibe with the energy, because a lot of it, what we do is really energy medicine, if you will, right? So,
This is why I haven't found anybody new here. I
you
keep
know,
saying you, and I'm, by the way, sorry, there's a little bit of a side note. I'm going to Austin in March with my daughter to visit the University of Texas, Austin. And I already, because I know the last time I was in Austin, you weren't there. And so I've already, thought to myself, okay, I got to get in a session.
yes, for
But
sure. I'd love to see you regardless. We'll definitely connect
yeah.
off of
But anyway,
this too.
but this is why it's been so tough because I've said to you, who else does exactly what you do here?
Yeah, and everyone does it different, and it's basically, and most people don't realize this. Every time we put a needle in you, we're giving you a
Yeah,
tiny bit of our chi, our energy. And so
right.
you do want to go to someone that you trust, go to someone that takes
Mhm,
care of themselves and that you can, like I said, vibe with. So that's why I say,
mhm.
I tell all my patients and people that ask, I'm like, it's like picking a therapist.
Right.
Sometimes you have to go through a couple to meet one that you actually can gel with and can work with.
Mhm,
So and not to say that that's not that if you go to someone that you don't feel their energy with, the acupuncture doesn't work. That's not really how it works. It's just more like from a comfort zone and from
yeah.
an emotional level too, because the way we look at it in Eastern medicine and Chinese medicine, it's not just a physical component when you come in. That's what most people
Mhm,
realize. Oh, my head hurts, or I have fertility issues, or X, Y, and Z. We actually treat from an emotional basis, an emotional
mhm,
spirit level, and that impacts our physical body. And so, not to sound woo woo, but that's why it works so well, because that's why people not only feel good physically, but they feel good emotionally as well.
mhm. Yeah,
Mhm.
I love all that. So great. So let's just go back a step forward. I think many people probably have an understanding of acupuncture. Most people, I'm sure, if not everyone listening, knows that acupuncture involves like sticking little needles into your body at different points, different places in your body. But for
Right.
those that may be really new to acupuncture, know what it is, but don't really understand what it is, can you just give a basic overview of what exactly is acupuncture?
Yeah, so acupuncture is based on the idea that your body has something called energy or chi that circulates in the body. And so it's based off the theory that anytime we have any ailment or sickness, regardless of what it is, how big or how small it is, it's because that chi, that life force, that energy that is circulating through us is stuck somewhere for whatever reason. It could be from, an outside trauma. It could be from an emotional state. It could be from our lifestyle. It could be from various issues. Regardless, every time we have any kind of blockage or stagnation of that chi, that's when an issue starts happening. And so, how acupuncture works from an easy way is just putting needles in certain points of your body that help to unblock that energy. So that energy flows smoothly again, and so that you feel good, you look good, you are good. It's a great way to get that circulation moving and get that energy flow back to where it needs to be. Yeah. And then from a
So
Western medicine standpoint, typically when we put a needle in you, depending where it is, it will create a signal to your brain, which helps to release a lot of neurotransmitters, feel good hormones,
Yep.
norepinephrine, serotonin, all those things that actually flood your system while you're resting on the table. And so it's pretty cool because your body knows what to do with the needles. It's kind of wild. Like I remember being in acupuncture school, and I remember someone asking one of our professors, this old guy from like from like mainland China, who's like old school, like communism, like no BS. And they were like, well, how did acupuncture come about? Like, who invented it? Because you hear about these like
Right.
folklore stories. And so, with a straight face, he looks at all of us and he's like, he points to the sky and he looks up. And we, of course, all look up. And he's like, aliens. And we're like, what? Humans are not smart enough to invent this type of medicine, and that it was gifted to us by aliens, which is really funny. But there's been proof throughout history that they'll find like there was this body they found, I think in Far East Russia, Siberia, where the guy they found I think it was like he was kind of like a caveman, and he had like these weird points and tattoos on his back. And so people were like, well, we don't know what that is. Maybe it's a tribal thing. And then later they were like, oh, those are acupuncture points. It aligns with our acupuncture.
Wow.
So it's like, it's one of those things where this medicine, I think, was really gifted to all of us, right? And it had
Right.
happened to hit different cultures differently, but obviously Eastern culture really embraced it and really promoted it in the
Right.
past. But I think it's just medicine that's universal, that works on everyone. And it basically, and as an acupuncturist, we would love to take more credit of being like, yes, it's because of what we did. Yes and no, but overall looking at it, it's basically your body. It's just reminding your body what it already knows. And the
That's
fact
such a
that
beautiful way to say it, reminding your body what it already knows.
absolutely. And it's one of those things where there's sometimes, even on all my years of practice, I'll have a patient come in, they'll come in for something they've been dealing with for such a long time. And after one or two sessions, it's completely gone. And even I am like, wow, that's really cool. Like, this stuff really
Right.
works.
It keeps
So,
even you're surprised. Yeah. And even though Eastern medicine really embraced this, we know now in Western medicine, there is a lot of research around acupuncture, a lot more research than people probably even realize.
absolutely. And it's really funny. A lot of the research nowadays is coming out of Germany, out of all countries, and Japan, and of course, China. And it's really interesting because there's so much that we're still learning about the human body. As we all know, there's always discoveries here and there of certain things. And I know a lot of pharmaceutical companies are doing a lot of their own experiments with drugs, but a lot of times we forget that our bodies are incredible self-healing machines. We don't have to remind ourselves to, if we get a cut or a bruise, to heal. It just does it. We don't have to remind ourselves to breathe or to blink, and so it's really phenomenal and incredible to see how well the human body can heal on its own when it just needs a little push in the right direction. And I do strongly feel like Eastern medicine does that. There's so many components and so many tools in your toolbox to help with that, but Eastern medicine definitely is a big one that can help push your body in that direction
Oh,
again. Mhm.
yeah, absolutely. And one thing with Eastern medicine that I think is so cool is, first of all, it's been thousands of years, right? So many things have been done for thousands of years. And sometimes people, when they do say, well, where's the research on that? Or where's the study on that? Now we do know that there are a lot of studies on acupuncture, as we were just discussing. But even when there isn't a study, sometimes it's like, well, here's the research for thousands of years, right? There just
Right.
hasn't been a specific study on this exact thing, but we've got a lot of evidence here that this has worked. And so I think people have to remember that and be open-minded to many different practices that have been practiced for thousands of years and have had incredible results.
Absolutely. And there's a reason why it's stuck around for so long. I mean, there
Right.
are things as like health fads, which we all know.
Right.
But something like this has been proven over for millions of people throughout history that's helped them in a way that sometimes it is unexplainable to a degree.
Hmm.
But it's incredible. It's one of those things where, as someone who was raised purely with Western medicine,
Right.
for me to learn the other side of it was like a very much like a what. I remember on the first day of my
Right.
acupuncture school class, one of the professors was like, everything you know about medicine, throw it out the window. This is a whole new ball game. This is a
Let's get a
whole new
clean
way.
slate here. Yeah.
Yeah, looking at the body
Super
completely
interesting.
different. And so, like, even in my practice, when I have patients come in, especially for the first time, and we do our initial assessment and we talk to them, and one of the ways that we can assess is through observation. So I'll look at their lips, and if their lips tend to be dry, I'll start asking them
Hmm.
questions. Do you also tend to bruise easily? Do you tend to
Hmm.
be tired in the afternoons? Those things usually are all congruent. It's pretty crazy.
Hmm.
And so it's like, wow, how did you know this? And it's like, well, our bodies are constantly telling us clues. It's constantly telling us things. We just have to know how to read it. And the art of reading the body has been lost throughout, the past
Well, we're all
decade.
looking for these quick fixes, these
Yeah,
very quick
exactly.
fixes. You
Yeah.
have a headache, take a pill. You have this, do this, or take that. We look for these quick fixes when we have to look further. We have to look deeper. We have to look for not only the root cause, but then come up with very often these solutions that are not, a pill or, they're like you said, there are things like this that have been practiced for thousands of years, which are reminding the body, like what you just said. I'm going to quote you now of what it already knows. Whatever. What did you say? Reminding the body what it knows it needs to do, what it knows how to do,
Reminding the body what it already knows. Yeah,
what
you
it
got it
already
right.
knows. Yeah.
And, something what you just said about the root cause, I mean, that's one thing too I should emphasize is that this type of medicine not only treats the branch, but also the root. So the symptoms that you
Right.
come for, the headaches and all that. And we assess and look at your body very differently than Western medicine. And that's why 9 times out of 10, when you come and see us for any type of weird pain, even though you've had your MRIs and your CAT scans and your x-rays, it can be solved because a lot of times, the way that we assess the body is very different than how Western medicine does.
Hmm.
And I do think there is a need for both. Um,
Absolutely. There's a need, but so much of Western medicine is band-aids. It's putting band-aids on things, right? We know that. And I'm not anti-Western medicine. I love Western medicine too, but you still need to we need to look further. It can't just be about the band-aids. You got to look for the root cause. And sometimes you need some band-aids to help you along while you're working on that root cause. But we have to look at the root cause of things, right? I want to take a moment to tell you about our podcast sponsor, which I'm a super fan of. In today's fast-paced go, go, go world, it's so easy to get overwhelmed and lose focus, especially when you're trying to accomplish critical tasks that require a sharp mind. If you're looking for a way to support your brain health and stay on top of your game, if you know me at all, you know I'm always looking to do that. Well, then you want to know about cognizant acetylcholine. This nutrient helps support brain function, and it plays a vital role in nourishing and protecting brain cells. Cognizant acetylcholine can help support focus, memory, and attention, promote cognitive performance, and support overall brain health. It's also known for its ability to support brain energy and is backed by numerous studies that show its effectiveness. Whether you're a student, a busy professional, a multitasking parent, or anyone looking to optimize mental clarity and sharpness, adding cognizant acetylcholine to your daily routine can help you achieve those goals and support your brain for the future. It can be found in many different products, including chewables, gummies, beverages, and even cold brew coffee. Visit cognizant.com for exactly where to find this ingredient, and don't forget to look for Cognizant on the label. But we have to look at the root cause of things, right? I mean, and we could go in a whole other conversation there, but I do love that acupuncture does that.
Yes, absolutely. And there's other modalities too in Eastern medicine that supports that, such as cupping, which I'm sure most of
Yep.
you guys are familiar with. Gua sha, which is taking a whole spin on the face, which is more beauty and wellness. But
Right.
traditionally, it was done on the body to really help relax the muscles, to work out any kind of tension. And there's studies now that show that if you do gua sha on the body, it helps with liver enzymes. It helps
Hmm.
build mitochondrial health. It helps to
Hmm.
actually lengthen telomeres. I mean, there's so many really weird, interesting
Wow.
facts and research that's coming out now over something that's just as simple as literally just using gua sha on your
Wait,
body.
gua sha on the body and affecting your telomeres. That's
Yes.
pretty wild. And your mitochondrial
Yeah.
health, which by the way,
Yes.
mitochondrial health is like, I feel like all the rage in the wellness world at the moment. It's
I
like
will say
everything is about mitochondrial health, right?
it absolutely. I mean, it's a powerhouse, right? It's what keeps us going, gives us
Right.
energy, and keeps us youthful. And so,
Now I'll have
uh,
to gua sha not just my face every night, gua sha my body.
yeah.
Actually, I was going to ask you about gua sha when we got to acufacials, but I guess I'll bring this up right now. When you're foam rolling with your
Mhm.
body, is that the same? Will you get the same benefits as doing gua sha on the body? Is it the same
Um,
sort of benefit?
there's some overlap, but the idea of gua sha is it traditionally helps with lymphatic drainage because what it does is
Right.
it's direct contact on your skin, right? And it's
Right.
not, whereas foam rolling is more of a deeper pressure
Mhm.
points. Because unless you're foam rolling very, very light, which I doubt you are, because the whole point of foam rolling
Mhm.
is to work the muscles and the tissues. Um, Gua sha, you can do different types of pressure and different types of depth, if you will. But what it does is it helps to relax the fascial tissue.
Mhm.
So when you're doing foam rolling, it can relax fascial tissue as well, but you're going on a deeper level. Whereas
Mhm.
with fascia, typically, especially depending on where it is on your body, right? The fleshier
Right.
parts a little bit deeper and a little bit more of a heavier pressure.
Okay.
But say you're doing your neck, say you wake up in the morning, you have a sore neck, and this happens to me
Mhm.
the other day. Something like doing gua sha is like medicine in your hand. You can literally fix yourself by doing this. And so in this case, when I'm gua shaing my neck because I woke up with a stiff neck or I slept wrong,
Mhm.
what it does it helps to loosen the fascial tissue. It helps to pull it off of the muscle layer so that's not sticking. So 9 times out of 10, when we wake up, especially as we get older, even if say we did a great, amazing yoga session the evening before, we're still feeling a little stiff, maybe a little bit tight.
Mhm.
And it's because the fascial tissue overnight tends to stick to, as you know, fascial tissue is made of collagen, as you know, as we age, it becomes more thin and brittle. And what happens is typically it will
Mhm.
float above the muscle. So there'll be a little bit tiny bit of space for blood to flow through. So it keeps it supple and soft and
Mhm.
flexible. If we're stressed or if as we age, it'll stick. And then what happens is it really kind of tightens against the muscle. So 9 times out of 10, when we're like getting out of bed, we're like, I just worked out
Right.
yesterday. I'm still stiff. So gua sha is a great way to kind of get directly into that area versus foam rolling is great, but you can't necessarily foam roll your neck. The foam rolling is
Okay.
more
Got it.
for like certain like limbs and torso. But gua sha can kind of get into the nitty gritty parts, such as your face and your neck
Okay.
and straight.
Okay.
That's easier. Mhm.
I
Yeah,
love it just feels so good. Just so
it does.
relaxing. I
Yeah.
still have the gua sha that you gave me at our first session.
Oh, that's
I
right. Oh
do,
my
I love
God.
it. It's a beautiful green one. I love it. Or the gua
Yeah,
sha
it's
tool.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love gua sha. There's so many other health benefits to it besides just obviously people use it nowadays for sculpt and lifting, which it does,
Right.
right? It helps relax the face. So gua sha works the same way that Botox does in terms of when you get something like Botox, the reason it works so well is because it's relaxing everything in your face. When your face
Mhm.
relaxes, it looks more lifted. Think about the days when you take a nap and you wake up and you're like, wow, I just look more rested. Or when you come back from vacation and your face
Mhm.
just you look at the pictures, you're like, wow, I look really good here. It's because you were relaxed, you were rested. And so gua sha kind of does the same thing. It's like medicine in your hands, where when you use it on your face, it helps not only with the lymphatic drainage, which helps with the sculpting, but it helps to relax the tissue and the muscles. So more blood flow get to that area, and then it can just kind of just relax. So I like to use it not only from kind of like a appearance point of view, but I like to use it because the way that you do it actually pushes more chi and blood flow to the brain, which helps you think
Mhm.
better. So mornings, whenever I'm foggy brained or I feel like I'm kind of
Mhm.
groggy and wake up, I'll do gua sha. I'll do it.
Oh, that's so
And
interesting. I never thought about using it for that purpose.
yeah. Yeah. And so, it's a different way of addressing things, and you don't necessarily have to go through all the steps like you see people do. I mean, sometimes I'll
Right.
just take it, really just focus on my jaw, bring it up through the hairline, and then end up here like this. I'll just kind of go
Huh.
like this and then end up here. And then this kind of brings everything up. So,
Wow,
yeah.
that's so good.
Yeah.
I don't really have a method to the madness. I just kind of, like you said, I start kind of at my chin and I just go up. I mean, I learned it originally from you. And I mean, now it's been
Right.
years and I just kind of like do it a little bit, but I just feel better. And
Yeah.
you feel better. And you do see a difference for sure.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
that's basically what it's supposed to do is just make you feel better. Not looking better is obviously a side effect of it, but
yeah.
feeling better is what it's all about. Yeah.
So let's go back another minute here to acupuncture in general, what are the biggest reasons you see that people come to you for acupuncture?
So it's very interesting. In New York City, when I was practicing there, it was very much stress across the board. Um,
Hmm.
just a different, where you're living.
Shocker. New York
I
City, shocker.
know, figure. Type A,
Yeah.
type A personalities that also complain to showing stiffness throughout the body, tightness throughout the body,
Hmm.
a lot of TMJ stuff. Since moving to Austin, it depends. It's like allergies, a lot of musculoskeletal issues, like back pain is a huge one. That's always been one that most people seek acupuncture for. Some kind of shoulder pain. Um, Most of the time, lately, I've been focusing a lot on fertility, actually.
Hmm.
So, fertility is a big one. There are hard case studies that prove that acupuncture, when in conjunction with IVF or even getting your period regulated,
Yeah.
it helps with that. Absolutely.
Yeah. I've seen people doing that for PCOS recently.
Yeah, it works for
Or
that too.
I've even recommended that to people for PCOS. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've worked on patients with that as well. And, just remember that acupuncture is just one toolbox in the whole toolbox of Eastern medicine. We have different
Right.
modalities. One other one that I like to emphasize that hasn't been emphasized enough is herbal medicine.
Right.
So that,
It's so funny when we were talking about, again, like popping pills and all of that and things having studies on them and not. And I was actually going to bring up herbal medicine because I know that you do work with that too. And that's it.
yeah.
I think herbal medicine in general is an example of where there probably aren't enough studies, but there's so much evidence from years and years of just it being put to use. And there are some studies, of course, but there's just not as much out there as many people would like. But the thousands of years of evidence, and I'm sure you see anecdotal evidence all the time,
Oh, yeah.
is really fascinating. So, oh, sorry. So go back. Yeah. So
Oh,
what
yeah.
herbs are your favorites?
So yeah, so with herbs, it really depends. I mean, we have a set, there's over, 3,000 herbs that we
Right.
typically use in different
Right.
combinations with each other. And so it kind of falls into where in your industry too, in terms of like nutrition, because traditionally herbs were taken as food. Food is thy medicine, like
Hmm.
what Socrates says. Or was it Aristotle? I think it was Socrates. But it's one of those things where there's these plants that grew that have been around for a while, and then they figured out, I don't know how, but they figured out through trial and error that certain combination of these plants in
It
certain
was
doses.
aliens. It was
It
aliens
was
again.
yeah, they did
Okay.
the
So.
pyramids, they did all kind, Great Wall. We're good. Yeah, so they did it for us. But anyway, so there's these different combinations that we still use to this day,
Right.
that's been so effective. And these formulas have been around for thousands of years. So there's a
Hmm.
great one for back pain that I use for my patients. There's great different ones for PCOS actually that we
Hmm.
use successfully. And migraines, and it just depends on what the patient's coming in for. But it's pretty cool. I mean, there's just so much variety and so many ways to treat someone. And so that's the nice thing too, that we're not just limited to a certain amount of drugs per se, like over
Right.
the counter drugs or prescription drugs or surgery, where there's other ways to address the human body before we go to that next step. Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
So I originally, my first experience with acupuncture was when I was pregnant, actually, and one, I couldn't sleep. So I'd gone to see someone who was amazing. Also, I loved him as well, as loving you. He was great, and I went to him for sleep. But then I also went to try to just to try to give birth, go into labor. I was not going into labor. I was almost 2 weeks late to the day
Oh,
with my son. So that's why, actually, yeah, it's crazy. I know. Whenever I tell people that, they're like, how they don't
yeah.
I was just really trying to do this naturally. Anyway, so that was the second time I did
Mhm.
acupuncture, but both times were during pregnancy. And then I done it a little bit after that, but then I hadn't done it for many, many years until I went to see you.
Mhm.
And again, as I said, as I told people, Robin introduced us, and I was really going because, as I mentioned already, I didn't want to do Botox. I really wanted to try to take that out of my life and not do that and do whatever I could to just sort of improve what I was already doing, some gua sha, I believe,
Mhm.
at the time, but I wanted to kind of take it up a notch. So I went to see you for acufacial. So can you explain to everyone, like, what is an acufacial? How does that work? You explained how gua sha works similar to Botox, but can you just
Mhm.
maybe give a little more insight into an acufacial? And I also just want to say, sorry, before you answer that, I'm going to say that one of the things that I found so amazing about going to you for acufacials was, regardless of what it was doing for my skin and how it looked, I would come out of there and say, I would rather do that and be on that table and have you put those needles into my face and into my head then, get a massage. To me, it was the most, and, again, not, I love massage too. And not that you can't do both, but to me, regardless if there was any benefits to the appearance of my face,
Mhm.
it was so relaxing. And you've already kind of touched on that. So I always felt like the benefits of that time there. I mean, I would sometimes fall asleep on the table, right? With the
Oh,
needles in my face. I would just fall asleep. And the benefits of that, the stress reduction when I would leave your office was so incredible that I always said, you know what? If I look better, that's just a bonus. I would feel so relaxed when I left. So anyway, I
yeah.
just wanted to mention that because whatever
Yeah.
you're going to, anyway, I just wanted to mention that before you talk about actually what happens.
Yeah, well, I'll just build on that. I mean, that's so great to hear that. And I'm so glad you enjoyed your sessions. And, one thing too with acupuncture, it's been proven to actually help calm the chatter in our head. So
Mm.
brain
Oh, I
waves,
need that. I didn't
when you
even
and
know that.
yeah, typically when you and I are active and talking, our brain waves work on certain like
Hmm.
alpha, beta, delta, even to a degree. And so when we do acupuncture, there's studies that show that it brings your brain waves down to theta,
Hmm.
which is the same level that your brain undergoes when it's under hypnosis and under
Hmm.
meditation. So it's not one of those things where it's more of a subconscious way of relaxing
Hmm.
too. And so that's why a lot of people find that acupuncture is so relaxing, because regardless
Hmm.
of where the needle in your face or in your body, it's still going to give you that same effect. Your body, like I said, just knows what to do with these treatments. It's pretty wild. So building on the cosmetic acupuncture or facial acupuncture, I love it because for me, it really brings me a lot of joy, because I think just aging in general for most of us has been quite, we get, especially as women, we get a lot of pressure from social media, from just men, or actually you can probably edit that part out, but just in general, we get a lot of pressure in terms of our appearance and how we look. And in Eastern medicine and Eastern culture, the face does represent your entire health. So we look at it not just from an cosmetic standpoint, but from a health standpoint. So when I look at your face, I can actually tell if there's other health issues going on.
Hmm.
And funny enough, your face is almost a microcosm, a
Hmm.
representation of your entire body. So we like to say everything small reflects everything large, and vice versa. And so your face reflects the rest of your body. And so when we actually
Hmm.
work on your face, like say you have certain lines or a certain wrinkle or a certain discoloration you want to get rid of, that can also represent certain things in Chinese medicine that we can actually help overall your entire body. So for example, anytime we see, someone with a line, there's a line that actually is right here. Most
Hmm.
men, we call it the suspended dagger line. I can give you some examples later if you like, but this line can represent a lot of frustration and anger or resentment that people
Hmm.
have.
Hmm.
Some of it's caused by dynamic movements of the face, but some of it's also caused just by emotions that have not been expressed
Hmm.
properly. And so in Chinese medicine, we do believe that emotions are energy, and energy, if not expressed properly, will be repressed, and that negative emotion has to go somewhere. And so in some
Hmm.
cases, say that yes, it can cause things such as cancer, things such as infertility to a degree. It can cause some of those. Now, I don't want to say that as a broad general thing, but it is one of those things where there are connections now that Western medicine is starting to find. Too much stress affects a woman's fertility. Too much stress can cause X, Y, and Z, and that's the way
Hmm.
that we evaluate and see it. So, going back to
Okay,
cosmetic
so
act,
I have that line. That's why I need to come back to you.
well, you do
And I keep, whenever I message you, are you back in New York yet?
I know. I'm planning to be back in
Come
March,
on,
and
we got to get rid of this line.
one easy way that you could do is just take Scotch tape, like invisible tape. And this also holds true if you happen to have 11s. You literally just take Scotch tape and put it
Hmm.
right over here and just wear it
Hmm.
around the house. And every time, because a lot of times this is made just by an expression, whether you realize
Hmm.
that you're probably furrowing your brows when you're thinking or typing, or, and so this is kind of retraining your face and your body not to make that expression. But
Yeah,
also,
probably that, and some emotions stuck in there too.
yeah, and it's interesting enough, when we work on those lines, like this line right here, the suspended dagger
Hmm.
line, people will go through emotional release. I've had
Hmm.
patients or afterwards they go home and they're like, I was just so angry. They're like, I was just so angry for whatever reason. And then they come back a week later and this is softened. It's pretty
Wow.
wild because we forget our face also, represents the healing process of our body, right? So
Mhm.
just like we cut ourselves anywhere in our body and it heals, our face constantly changes. So that's why, and some people are like, well, it's the aging process. Yes and no. It's also part of the emotional state that we're in. It's also
So
how we're
interesting.
nourishing ourselves through food, through, life, our lifestyle, if we're getting enough sleep, if we're not. And so
Yeah.
in my practice, I
That makes
also do something called face reading. And so that also kind of overlaps with what we do for cosmetic acupuncture because your face changes all the time. Even some of the features can change slightly and it can tell us
hmm.
things that are happening, things that can be corrected. So it's really pretty, I love it because it's just so fascinating. Everyone's face is so different and it changes constantly.
So interesting. So
Yeah.
interesting. So I have another question for you. I have so many more questions for you. We're going to have to do this again. But one question, ear seeds. What do you think about them?
Oh, yeah, I love them. They work great. So, the whole idea of ear seeds is that once again, we like to think that everything small reflects something larger. And so, the
Mhm.
ear itself is actually an upside down fetus. If you look at it, this is the head,
Mhm.
this is the spine, these are the internal
Hmm.
organs. So, it's a microcosm of our entire body. Ear seeds are great because they're actual pressure points throughout the ear that can
Mhm.
actually regulate and help with emotional distress. So, we use it a lot for, say, veterans or people that have gone through
Mhm.
PTSD. Any type of addictions can actually be helped through here, whether it's drugs, alcohol, whatnot. And the ear actually represents the entire body. So anything we do here can actually help the rest of your body, just like stuff we do on the face. And so a lot of times, ear seeds are great for people that are afraid of needles, if they're needle
Mhm.
phobic. So I would treat patients in the past that were perhaps missing limbs. And
Mhm.
so, sometimes you do need to do certain points that actually help with getting things moving. And so you could actually treat the ear and they would still quote unquote have their limb energy because it's still here. So it's
Incredible.
yeah.
Amazing.
So the
Yeah.
ear is pretty incredible how it can actually regulate so much of our emotions, our even our body temperature, even fertility. There's a point that we do on the apex of the ear, kind of right underneath, that helps with
Mhm.
adrenal glands, and so it can actually
Mm.
help calm the body. It's pretty wild. I love it. So I do
Yeah,
that
that's wild. And that in conjunction with probably some herbal remedies, adaptogenic herbs, that must be really powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just a great way to address the body instead of having to take a Xanax or
Right.
having it, or like, I mean, I think culturally speaking, it's always been preferred in, at least in Asia, to go about these ways. Just because
Mhm.
we built in our culture, we kind of know, we know if we're stressed out,
Mhm.
you actually can rub your ear and it will calm you down. It's,
Mhm.
yeah.
So good.
Mhm.
You're just filled with so much knowledge. I love it. Okay, acupuncture, humming, and nitric oxide. Talk to
Yes.
me. Talk to
So
me about that.
there are studies that show that nitric oxide helps with vasodilation, which helps bring blood flow and fresh nutrients to parts of our bodies. In Chinese medicine, we look at it as blood and qi flow, so like energy. So qi is like the energy that moves blood, which is the
Mhm.
nutrient part. So you need both. And so acupuncture has been proven to release more nitric oxide in the body, just like humming. So there's studies that show now that if you hum, that actually helps to produce more nitric oxide. And acupuncture does the same thing. 10 minutes of acupuncture, that's all you need, and it releases almost the same amount as humming does. And it's pretty
Wow.
wild because nitric oxide also helps with like anti-aging. They're starting to find it has a lot to do with our immune system and actually, fighting things such as cancer. And so it's pretty incredible that something that literally all you have to do, and this is the best part of acupuncture, is literally you just come in, you just lay there. You don't have to do any work. You let
Right.
us, the
Right.
acupuncturist, do everything, and you're in receiving mode. So you can just
Yeah,
rest.
it's such an incredible tool too for people that, say, "Oh, it's difficult for me to meditate," or,
Yeah.
yoga's really I zone out. I have a tough time focusing in yoga or whatever it might be. It's just I agree. I love that because you go in and you just lie there and you just receive all of those benefits. Is it when
Absolutely.
I and just back to nitric oxide, when I hear nitric oxide, by the way, I think of beets because
Yeah.
beets are loaded with nitric oxide. I really do. That's where my nutrition brain goes is beets. Having a good beet juice or a beet salad. I think of because that's filled with nitric oxide. Uh, but acupuncture, it's incredible that helps with that as well. And then the humming part, I think, is just really fascinating. And it's interesting too, because you think sometimes people hum when they're anxious, and it's like the body's natural way of trying to, calm
Self-soothe.
themselves, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And so it's just pretty cool that there's different ways we can eat beets to like, get our nutrition for nitric oxide. We can actually stick something sharp in someone and they can actually relax and release nitric oxide as well. And that's one thing I wanted to touch on too is with acupuncture, I know it seems very, what's the word I'm looking for? It seems very non-intuitive in terms of,
Hmm.
oh, in and you're going to relax. Like, how does it make you relax? Because you're getting sharp objects being stuck
Right.
in you. But the needles that we use are one-time use disposable, stainless steel, sterilized, tiny
Hmm.
needles that about the big human hair. And
Yeah,
we've been
you don't
trained.
feel them. You really don't
Yeah, you
feel
don't
them.
feel them at all. And I think that's the big stigma attached to acupuncture, which prevents most people from trying it. And I get it because it doesn't make sense from a logical standpoint, putting something
Right.
sharp in you and then you're getting better. So
Yeah, but it is such an incredible tool. And another thing that's worth mentioning too, for many people out there that haven't tried it before, or even if you have tried it and you want to go do it again, a lot of insurance covers acupuncture. So like
absolutely.
there's, yeah, many people take acupuncturists and take insurance and check out with your insurance carrier. I mean, it's really possible to get it covered and to go regularly, because I think that that's also something for people, they think about like going once, and I think it's actually one of these things that if you use it as a tool, it's even more incredible to be able to use regularly, going whether it's once a week or every other week. I mean, how often do you recommend people go?
Yeah, that's a great question. So typically, if it's your first time coming in, we like to say you want to come in twice a week for at least 4 weeks. I mean,
Okay.
sorry, twice a week for at least 2 weeks, not 4 weeks. Um,
Okay.
this being because each session builds on the previous one, and so you don't want to
Hmm.
wait in between, especially if you're coming in for something chronic. You might have to come in a little bit longer, but typically by session 3 or 4, your body starts really making a difference, seeing a
Hmm.
difference. And so it's just kind of getting on that train of coming in that often. And if you go see someone like a physical therapist or a chiropractor, they'll probably say the same thing when it comes
Hmm.
to any kind of issue, because that's just how our bodies are. One session may or may not help you in terms of seeing a huge difference. I always like to tell my patients, hey, give it a shot for at least 3 to 4 sessions, and then let's revisit and see where you are. And,
Hmm.
almost 6 out of 10, they're like, absolutely. I'm glad I committed to this many sessions because now I see a difference. So I do
Amazing.
have a lot of patients that do come in, first time or second time, coming in to see me for the first time, saying, hey, I tried it once before. And I'll always ask them, what did you go in for? And how long did you go in for?
Right.
Because those are
Right.
two big factors to
Yeah.
determine if you can, notice a difference and feel a difference.
Right.
Mhm.
And you bring up such a good point. I mean, you have to really commit to it and be consistent with it, just like
Mhm.
an exercise routine or a new, a new, I don't want to say even diet, but just a new way of eating, right? Like you've got to commit to it. You can't just do something once or do something for a few days or do something for a week. You really do have to commit to it. But I think adding something in like acupuncture to your whole, as I would say, nutritious life can be
Mhm.
such an incredible tool. Also, because I think that many people haven't done these things before, or haven't done them necessarily consistently in conjunction with, let's say, improving their diet, focusing on staying hydrated, maybe thinking about their sleep. It's a whole other tool that can really help elevate the rest of your wellness. And
Absolutely. And I actually work with a lot of patients on digestion. So
mhm,
we look at nutrition and not just what we eat, but how we eat it, how it's
mhm,
prepared. Right? And so, acupuncture can really help regulate digestion. So it's been really nice to see patients have regular bowel movements now and not feel
amazing.
tired after they have a salad or whatnot. So,
So
yeah.
good.
Mhm.
We're going to have you back here. I could talk to you about all of this for hours and hours. You are amazing. I am so excited to see you in Austin. I'm going to include in the show notes, everyone, where you can find Debbie. You have to go follow her on Instagram, check out her website. If you're in Austin, go see her. But also anywhere else that you want to tell people to find you, or anything else you want to tell anyone to check out.
Yes, you can find me on Instagram at dr.debbie.kung. That's my main focus of social media at this point, and of course my website as well. And thank you so much for having me, Keri. This was awesome to see you, and I can't wait to catch up with you in real life.
So good
And
seeing you. I cannot wait to see you in real life and give you a big hug and have you put some needles in my face. All right. I adore you. So good seeing you. Thank you so much. Bye.
bye.